Today is February 27th, 2019. My name is Joe Todd. This is an interview with Robert Hussey in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. Sir, where were you born?
I was born in Norwalk, California.
Where?
Norwalk,
Norwalk. And when's your birthday?
January 19th, 1972.
Who is your father?
My father is Timothy James Hussey.
And your mother?
Donna Bernice Hussey.
What was her maiden name?
Boone, B-O-O-N-E.
Okay. Did you go through school in Norwalk?
I did.
You graduated what year?
91.
1991.
But I didn't graduate in Norwalk. Graduated in Georgia.
Georgia.
Yes, sir.
When did the family move to Georgia?
The family didn't. I did.
You did?
Yeah. I had a run-in. I turned 18. Had a run-in with my dad, and so I moved off with my grandparents.
Okay, where in Georgia?
Austell, Georgia.
Austell, Georgia. In your schooling, who was your favorite teacher?
I actually had a couple. One of the teachers' names was Miss Daly. I had a learning disability, and she was actually the teacher that helped with it. What was the other lady's name? There was a lady, her name was Miss Jacobson, and Miss Fujimura. They were really, the first ones that impressioned on me.
Okay. You played sports in high school?
No, I didn't. I was that little druggy kid who did what he wanted and thought he was everything.
What'd you do after high school?
After high school, I had a couple little jobs. I was a cook for the one company, and I bounced around within their company. And did that for about 2 years and then joined the military.
Okay. You joined the
I joined the Army.
Army? Okay. When did you join the Army?
January 24th, 1994.
1994. Why'd you join the Army or the Navy, Marines, or Air Force?
That's a funny story, too. My grandfather, I'd turned 21 by then, and my grandfather and me kind of had it out one day, and I told him, I'm going to go join the military. And then 6 months later, kind of forgot about it, and the recruiter called me back one day, and it's like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Let's do that. And I joined up ideally following my little brother.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, it was 20 years of marital bliss.
Where'd you go for your basic training?
I went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
Tell me about basic.
I went in with an attitude of, I don't know anything and they're going to teach me. Was I scared? A little bit, because it's totally something new and unknown. And I came out of it going, yeah, I'm going to do this for my 4 years and I'm going to get out. But, it was an okay time. It was nothing that made me crazy.
Okay. What type of training did you have in basic?
Basic training, ideally just basic stuff to be a soldier.
Mm-hmm.
How to march, how to walk, how to talk, shooting, basic combat skills.
You go on bivouac?
Yes, we went on bivouac.
Tell me about bivouac.
Bivouac was all done at dark for us. We slept somewhat during the day, but everything we did mostly was at night.
Okay.
One nice thing was that night they wanted to do their 25K road march. The DFAC needed help, and I volunteered quick. They tell you never volunteer for anything, but that day I volunteered for whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
That night I slept in a nice hot bed, and my buddies walked back in the rain.
Basic lasted how long?
I want to say it was 8 weeks.
8 weeks. So after basic, where'd you go?
I moved to my MOS school, which was At that time, it was a 31 uniform. It was fairly new MOS. It combined a handful of other MOSs in the communications field.
Communications.
Yes.
And where'd you go for your AIT?
Beautiful Augusta, Georgia. Trying to think of the name of the place. I don't remember the name of
Now
Augustus.
there's Columbus is Fort Benning.
Columbus is Benning.
Augusta is
Stewart is down there on the other coast.
down by Savannah.
Yeah,
Gordon?
Fort Gordon.
Fort Gordon. How did AIT compare to basic?
It was a lot more relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we still had drill sergeants. They weren't as hard on you. You know, you've already been broken. Now they're building you up. This is another stage of building you back up. You know, teaching you a new job. Our drill sergeant we were kind of his last class. It wasn't supposed to have, so he was a little bit extra lenient.
And in communications, did you have to learn code?
We didn't do Morse code then. By then it pretty much had been worked out. Some of us learned it just for the fun of it.
Yeah.
But it was all the 12 series radios, ideally Vietnam era radios.
Yeah, in Vietnam we had the Prick 25 and the Prick 26.
Yeah, well, Prick 77,
Okay.
the RT524, you know, a lot of well, it'd be newer from then, but still ancient to what today is standard is.
Okay. Now, when you were in basic and AIT, did you study the Gulf War, Desert Storm?
No, because I was old enough to watch it on TV.
What do you think about this?
The Gulf War,
Yeah.
I understood why. You know, it was only a couple years after I joined that it happened. It was quick, fast, and done. You know, I think political views played some in it, but, you know, in school, there was no Gulf War.
Okay. Yeah.
Hadn't made it to schools yet.
Yes. So after your communication school, AIT, where'd you go?
I went to beautiful Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
Fort Campbell. What'd you do there?
I was stationed with 1st 101st Aviation Battalion. And I was a communications guy, you know, radios. I was only there for a year, so we learned quick. We actually learned a whole new radio system there because them being a rapid deployment, they got all the new stuff first. That's where I learned that, you know, I really didn't want to stay in, but, you know, because I had a few NCOs who weren't so hot. But throughout the military, you're always going to have at least one or two. But I actually enjoyed it there. I enjoyed the area. Like I said, it was a rapid deployment unit. We were set to deploy twice to the Gulf because of Saddam Hussein. You know, we were that reaction force. And some weekends it kind of messed me up. But
And what unit were you assigned to in
1st Battalion, 101st Aviation Regiment.
101st Aviation?
It was
What was your job in the unit?
I was just a communications specialist. I worked on the radios, telephone lines, any means of the communication field.
Okay. Now, did you still lay the commo wire?
We still laid commo wire by the miles and hung antennas up as high as we can get them.
Okay. So, but you were never deployed though?
I didn't deploy with them.
Okay.
Like I said, we were the rapid deployment unit. We got ready too many times, a couple times because Saddam decided he was going to head south toward Kuwait again. And, it was right at Christmas time because that was his pattern.
Yes.
And everyone came back to work and we all got ready and told, okay, stand down.
Now, how does a rapid deployment unit work?
With 18th Airborne Corps, that's where 101st falls under. Your wheels up on your way anywhere in 18 hours. So that's shots, everything dental-wise, everything getting you ready to say, okay, you are completely able to deploy. You keep things packed most of the time for that purpose. So everything is ready.
And you at Fort Campbell how long?
I was there for a year.
A year. Then where'd you go?
I went to Aviation Brigade, 3rd ID in Ansbach, Germany.
Ansbach, Germany. Did you request Germany?
No, I actually came down orders on that.
Okay, okay. So what'd you do at Ansbach?
Ansbach, I picked up the computer side of communications. Ideally, I replaced the guy, that's all he did, and that's ended up what I did. All I did was deal with their computers, their networks, at the same time doing regular communications, commo stuff. You know, radios, wires, you know, maintenance on vehicles, you know, everything that you normally do.
Okay. Now, when'd you go to Germany?
November 95.
What was the reaction of the local people to you in Ansbach?
Most of the people there were actually fairly nice. You know, at that time I didn't get out a lot. I was waiting for my wife to come over before I went out and did anything. So, you know, the locals that came on post, we had no problems with. You know, back then it was an open post, so you can come in and out. I actually had one of them that helped me get to my first apartment downtown.
Of course, Germany had united by this time.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Did you get to Berlin?
I did not make it to Berlin. You know, I made it to Nuremberg, I made it to all the southern cities. We were in Bavaria, so, you know, I loved that area.
Okay. And were you still in communications in 3rd ID?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And
you know, while I was there, we deployed to Bosnia. You know, I can't remember what they called that. Ideally, it was I4 was the acronym they used. I don't remember what it stood for. Ideally, it was stopping, I want to say stopping the Civil War there. You know, they kind of had a ceasefire. UN came in to help them out. And we were, you know, that's where we went for my first deployment.
when you heard that you were being deployed to Bosnia, what were you thinking?
That really wasn't. I found out I was on R&R or not R&R, but I was on leave. And I came back to the States for Christmas. And one of my buddies had called me and said, hey, they just told us we're going to deploy in 3 months. Well, okay. You know, I was kind of shocked, but it was okay. Let me try to get my family straight, because it was just me and my wife. So some of it was it was kind of shocked because there was a lot of rushing. And in that rush, because you're told you're going to do this, you have this long to get ready. So you're rushing to get things done and get them done right.
Okay. So when did you leave for Bosnia?
I don't remember the date.
Was it 96?
95. I went to Germany. I want to say it was early 97.
Okay.
Yeah, early 97, because when I came back, I came back stateside.
Okay. So tell me about going to Bosnia and what happened.
We got there to a little camp. It was called Tuzla Main West. And it was an aviation, strictly helicopter aviation, little airfield. When we first got there was one tent where we were set up at, but there was another tent city that was already being occupied. I was on the advance party to learn what network they had. From that one tent that we all stayed in, it bustled out to about 24 tents. While that tent was built, we watched them go out and clear the area of mines. So there's our tent, and then everything around it was considered a minefield at the time because it hadn't been cleared. And so we sat back on the hoods of our trucks and watching this happen, and it's like, well, nothing went boom, so that's a good thing.
Were you still with 3rd ID at this time?
There was a reflagging that happened about 6 months, 7 months prior to that. And 3rd ID changed over to 1st ID.
1st ID, okay.
So it was still Aviation Brigade, 1st Infantry Division.
Was that the 4th Brigade?
Yes, it was. I've seen your aviation wings.
I was 4th Brigade, 1st ID, Desert Storm.
Okay.
Same unit.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So what was your job in Bosnia? What did you do?
I was the network manager there. I'd been to a few schools from Division's S6 class, or shops, that set us up to run a network down there. And my bosses made sure that that was what I did, and that's what I had to do.
And what kind of radios did you have?
At that time, that unit had just changed over to the Singars radio,
Singars? Yes.
frequency hopping radios.
Okay.
My big thing there was I had a portable satellite system for networking and telephones that I had to take care of and maintain. We still had the old MSE equipment that was worked in from the signal unit. We also had a UN package because our unit didn't necessarily work for 1st ID, but we worked for the UN at that time. And so we had a complement package from the UN and their soldiers that came with it.
What did you think of the UN over there?
Oh, I love those guys. They were kind of free will group of people, but it was a mixed unit. It wasn't just British guys. I had a couple British guys with them, a couple of Norwegian guys, and there was a couple other guys. I can't remember where they were from, but it wasn't just all one country for them.
You have contact with the local people around Tooth-Lemaine?
Very little. If I was on guard duty, you'd see the guy out there, tell him to go away, or just keep an eye on him, see what they were doing.
Why was there a civil war in Bosnia?
Well, I think I know this. Ideally, what was happening was when the breakup of Yugoslavia happened, everyone wanted their little piece, and those in-between lines weren't really wanting to be part of them. Then you had Slobodan Milosevic, who went through and cleaned house out of Serbia, trying to go through those areas.
So, what's your most vivid memory of Bosnia?
Tearing apart tents looking for a ComSec device. At that time, there was 2 units on the post. I helped our ComSec custodian a lot, and they drew ComSec from us because we were an actual vault. And one of their guys got mad at one of their NCOs, and boom, a ComSec device disappeared. So everybody's locked down, everyone's not doing anything, and everyone's tearing everything up looking for this thing.
And what's ComSec?
Oh. These questions, I had done this in 5 years. It's communication security, the keys used to secure communication.
Is it like crypto?
It's crypto.
Okay.
It's the device that holds it.
Okay.
Where the older generation had tapes, we had digital devices that held it all for us.
Did you find it?
Oh yeah, the kid ended up fessing up where he threw it out the window on his drive home, and he was literally on his drive out of the country. And I remember tearing it up to fix it. You know, they went through everything we had 5 times. The good thing is we did our job the right way. Our paperwork was straight. It boiled down to being on that.
What's your best memory of Bosnia?
I think it was the camaraderie of the guys in our shop. You know, we always took care of each other. If someone needed something, you know, everyone looked out for each other. You know, at that time we actually had really good NCOs in that shop. You know, so they taught us what it was to be an NCO.
What's your worst memory of Bosnia?
Waking up to mortar fire, knowing that all I had was a tent.
Was it incoming?
It was incoming fire. There used to be a guy set up on a hillside and would fire into the area, but I don't know that he was aiming because he never hit anything. But it was just that first initial, this guy's trying to kill me. And after a while, you kind of got used to it. You know, I got actually really bad later on in my deployments.
Did you live in tents in Bosnia, or?
We lived in GP mediums with wooden frames. They actually framed them up so it would last more than 3 weeks on the poles.
Who was your commanding officer?
I don't remember the company commander. I know our brigade commander was Colonel Casey. Tim Casey, I remember his name. His wife ended up taking my wife under her wing since it was her first deployment.
Did we do a good job in Bosnia?
Since I was there at the beginning, right there toward the beginning, I don't know how it turned out. Because by then I was on to my next set.
And you in Bosnia how long?
That was a 9-month tour there.
9-month tour. You come back a changed person?
I changed a little bit, just going, okay, I'm starting to like this military thing. I didn't like being away from my family, but, I know I signed my name. This is what I had to do. As far as change, I really haven't changed much since I was 19 years old.
So what were you thinking when you getting on the airplane leaving Bosnia?
Oh, this is such a nice flight, because I was able to catch a ride on a UH-60 going out of the country. So I wasn't sitting in a truck for 8 hours, I think it was a 12-hour ride to just get out of the country.
Yeah. And from Bosnia, where'd you go?
We went back to Germany, and that's where I re-enlisted the first time. And I re-enlisted to go to Fort Benning, Georgia, because I wanted to get my wife close to her family. When we got there, I was stationed. My unit was 101st Battalion, 30th Infantry Regiment. First time I'd ever been in an infantry unit. I was expecting. I don't know what I was expecting, because when they said you're going to this infantry unit, it was like, well, okay, let me pull my big boy britches up and go be a soldier again.
Did you go to Fort Benning?
I did go to Fort Benning, beautiful Kelly Hill. And that's when I was introduced to mechanized infantry. It was 3rd Infantry Division. So I had this bad pattern. I stayed 1st ID and 3rd ID almost my whole career. Because I would move, they would move. That's when I decided I was staying in for, I was going to at least go to 10 years and make that decision. And I had great NCOs that I worked with. I even deployed with them twice. We drew the rotation for Kosovo. I think we were the 4th or 5th rotation in. And prior to that deployment is when 9/11 happened. We were doing our military exercise, prep to go, and it happened while we were out in the field in Fort Polk, Louisiana. And that was just a culture it was a 180-degree culture shock, because now we're no longer not doing the rapid deployment because we were already on a mission, but it was just the shock of it all happening. Knowing that, okay, the Pentagon can change their mind and say, you're not going to Kosovo, you are now going straight to war. And that kind of opened my eyes and opened my wife's eyes. And
So did you go to Kosovo?
we got to go to Kosovo. I got to spend 6 months in the beautiful Kosovo countryside.
What'd you do there?
I took care of, like I say, I was one of the few guys who knew computers. So I got to do anything, if it had to do with a computer on that post, whether it was broken, couldn't get on the network, ideally it was a system admin plus computer maintenance. That was all, it was a lot to handle for me. I'd gotten promoted to E5 at that time, so I'd gotten my first stripe, and so I was in charge. It was my word, and my boss backed me up on it. For me, it was a high stress because everyone wants their computer to work so they can email home and surf the internet. So I got burned out really quick, and a few of the civilian guys that ran our connection out of there, we became good friends, and they were prior service also. They got me in, showing me how to relax, how to put that aside for a little bit. We'd go over and play cards with them, watch whatever TV channels they had. But it kind of built me up.
How did Kosovo compare to Bosnia?
Kosovo was a cakewalk as a deployment. I mean, it was so much easier. I had a room with 8 other guys. They called them sea huts. I had a bed I was sleeping on. I had lights. I had a shower. It was a lot nicer.
Where were you based in Kosovo?
I don't remember the base name. I can't even remember the city. Jelani, Kosovo. If you ask me how to spell it, I can't tell you. It was a nice little town. We actually got to get out on the town. They wanted people, they wanted troops to do present patrols. Go out, make them know that you're here. And we would go out in town. We were told, you could shop. As long as you weren't buying food. If you saw something, like a gift for a wife or something, they were okay with it, just staying away from foods. That way you can't be poisoned, you can't get sick. So getting out in town, it was kind of different, kind of nice. We had to walk everywhere for that one.
What was your reaction of the local people to you?
Most of them liked us there. There were some of the Serb holdouts that were in the area that didn't want us there, but they didn't try to cause too much problems. The only time that I noticed that there was really a problem was Kosovo had an earthquake that year. Registered 7.2, 7.5, and it brought down the minaret on the mosque. And at that point, we were accused of mortaring the mosque. But that's, any culture is going to pick their battles to fight. And the building I was in, we evac'd it, closed it off for about 3 weeks while they went through and checked every brick in that building. My boss thought it was funny because I saw something happen. I looked up, went back to what I was doing, And all I said is, hey, we're having an earthquake. Everyone else is freaking out and bouncing around, and I'm trying to finish what I was doing. Like I say, I grew up in California. We know what earthquakes are.
And you're in Kosovo how long?
That was a 6-month tour there.
6 months too.
Yeah.
What's your most vivid memory of Kosovo?
The view from the sniper tower in downtown Kosovo, or in downtown Jelani.
The sniper tower.
It was the tallest building in town, and we were told to go up there and clean any communications equipment out of it. So me and about 5 of my other guys jumped in a couple trucks, took off downtown. We met up with the division guys who had the keys for it. And ideally we were going through there, cleaning up any communication stuff that was in there. But the view, you could just see the whole town, the countryside, and it was just beautiful. It's a war-torn country, but it was beautiful.
So from Kosovo, where'd you go?
I went back to Fort Benning.
Fort Benning.
Beautiful Fort Benning. After Kosovo, I re-enlisted again. Like I said, that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to do this because I enjoyed it.
What did your wife think when you re-enlisted?
She thought I was crazy. My family didn't believe I made it past basic, so everyone was thinking it was a great thing. At that time, the economy wasn't doing so hot, so I figured, okay, I've got a job, might as well keep doing it. I'm decent at it. So I re-enlisted to stay at Fort Benning, Georgia, because it kept the wife close to home. 6 months later, we were headed to the Gulf. My wife about had a fit. Ideally, within 6 months of returning from Kosovo, the division got orders to be ready to deploy to Iraq.
Are you your first ID or third ID?
Third ID.
Third ID. What'd you do in Iraq?
What did I do in Iraq? I was, for my first tour in Iraq, I did nothing but retransmissions. Ideally relaying radio signals so that they can talk further out. I did that, and ideally maintaining everyone's radios and stuff.
Where in Iraq were you?
At the beginning, that was the thing. It was the invasion, so we didn't stop anywhere too long. We stopped at, what was that air base? I know it was called Firebird after we left there. Whoever came in behind us gave it that name of Firebird.
Was it northern Iraq, southern Iraq?
Southern Iraq. We came in from the south out of Kuwait.
Okay.
And the town starts with a T. I know it starts with a T because I can't remember the rest of it.
Was it close to the Ziggurat Pyramid?
I don't know.
You familiar with the Ziggurat? The step pyramid that's 4,000 years old.
It was before that.
Okay.
Talala. I want to say that's the name of the city, but I can't remember.
Okay.
But it was right off the river.
Okay.
So.
That's the Euphrates?
Euphrates.
Yeah.
We stopped there. We stopped the outside of God knows how many other little towns and working our way to Baghdad.
What was the reaction of the Iraqi people towards you?
We didn't see too many of them. I say for the invasion, a lot of people, for better terms, disappeared. That I want to say took off into the desert, and a lot of people didn't want to mess with it. From my standpoint, I didn't see a lot of resistance, but I wasn't at the front. Like I say, we were a mech infantry unit, so our mechanized guys were up front. I worked with the TOC, stayed with the TOC area.
Still in communication?
Still in communications.
Right. Still have, what kind of radios did you have there in Iraq?
We had the Singars radios.
Okay.
It was the next generation of them.
Okay.
So So ideally, everything we already knew, we knew how to fix it. We knew what parts we needed to fix anything. Our trucks were loaded down, waiting for something to happen for someone else. As long as they're talking, my job was easy.
What's your most vivid memory of Iraq?
That first tour was falling asleep on the road while my driver was trying to stay awake. Like I say, we'd been going, it was day one of the invasion, and as with the Gulf War, you're familiar with driving everywhere 5 miles an hour. Takes all day to get anywhere, and when you get there, you're trying to stay awake. But my driver had, I guess he dozed, because our lead vehicle came back and smacked our hood. And we woke up and we went 50 yards and stopped. By then the sun had come up. When the sun came up, you could see the smoke off in the distance from our guys fighting all night at the airfield. And while I'm sitting there in that truck, waiting for them to call us forward to there, I had an A-10 come screaming by. And we didn't pay much attention to it. When he came by, I guess he saw something, because he came back around. And when he came back around, he dropped 2 flares. It couldn't have been half a kilometer out, 500, 600 meters out. He shot 2 flares off, and his partner came in behind him and just lit that area up. Well, when it went boom, we learned it was a tank that was sitting there, but it was empty. Because if it wasn't empty, all of us on that road should have been dead.
What vehicles did you have?
I had a regular Humvee with plastic doors. It had no reason for armor yet. And most of the time my doors weren't even on.
You in Iraq how long?
For that trip, it was a 6-month trip.
6 months.
Yep. Yeah, we did the invasion. We got to Baghdad, secured the water plant in Baghdad, because we're trying to save infrastructure for the city. We hung out at that water plant for 3 or 4 weeks, and they said, okay, you're done. You're going home. They didn't want us there, I'd say, compromising peace that was going on. Most of the people in town liked us. There's always sympathizers to the other side. When we took over that water plant, we took over a big area, and we actually had like 2 or 3 families that lived within our perimeter, because we weren't trying to displace them. But we also had gone through and cleared their houses and everything. So, they'd be good, we'd be good.
So from Iraq, where'd you go?
I went back to Fort Benning. I had re-enlisted to PCS to Germany. And actually re-enlisted right before I went to Iraq. And while I was sitting in Iraq, my partner from my first deployment emailed me and goes, hey, do you still work on computers? I go, yeah, why? He goes, because you're on my gains roster. So I was going to my unit with another friend. He goes, you're on our gains roster, and we're set to deploy in, at that time, I think he said it about 5 months.
What roster?
Gains roster, incoming personnel rosters.
Okay.
People haven't gotten there yet.
Okay.
And I told him, yeah, I'm still doing this and that, and he goes, good, because that's all you're going to do here. So we got home, PCS to Germany, got settled in. That would have been November 2003. We PCS back to Germany, back to first ID. Like I said, I had a bad habit of bouncing back and forth, and we got there, got settled in. The wife already knew the deployment was coming, and we deployed again. 6 months to the day, almost to the day that I got back from my previous deployment.
Where'd you go?
Back to Iraq. I did 4 tours in Iraq. 4. Invasion, 82nd, 3 tours, 4 tours. I don't remember. We went to the Diyala province on my 2nd tour. I was with 82nd Engineer Battalion. And like I said, my buddy was the commo chief for that unit. And we got there, we did everything, we came in, we fell into everything kind of being set up for us already. They had stuff that was, equipment that was staying there, which made it a little bit easier having to deal with rebuilding a whole network. Like I said, I was the computer guy. If it broke, I had to fix it or find a way to fix it. Which was good and bad because I would get woke up at all hours of the night and day, and the good thing was I had a kid who worked with me who was eager to learn how to do it. That's still an E5 sergeant. So I took this young kid under my wing and taught him how to do my job so that I could take a break once in a while. Training the next set of guys to take over.
Now, your deployments in Iraq, did you do basically the same thing?
The first one I didn't do the same thing because we didn't have that kind of setup for it. We were the invasion force. Then when we came in the second time, everything was kind of set up because there was a unit that we followed in on. I was the sergeant major's pet then. As long as he could talk to his wife, he was happy. Everyone gets their morale calls and stuff. As long as he could talk to his wife, he was happy. And that was my job, was to make sure that everyone's connection was good. I got out in town once in a while, but not too often.
Where were you this time?
I don't remember the name of that city.
Okay.
It was the Diyala province. And if we drove through there, I could show you everything that I ever touched in that country there.
Was that southern Iraq, central Iraq, or
North of Baghdad.
north of Baghdad?
The Sunni Triangle.
Okay. Around Tikrit in that area?
South of Tikrit, though.
Okay.
Ideally, if you came out of Baghdad and probably went 30 miles, maybe 40 miles, it was hard to judge distance because you're driving slow then too. You're either driving slow or real fast.
Yeah.
But there, all I did was take care of their networks because my partner, he had all the other troops trained to take care of radios, take care of wire, do stuff like that. And the only time I really messed with that was when he went on vacation. He did his R&R. Okay, I was the next hire. I'm in charge of this whole mess. Let's keep it going.
Did you take an R&R over there?
I did take R&R over there.
Where'd you go?
I went home to see my wife. The nice thing was our company commander understood that I had just done back-to-back deployments. And he goes, when do you want to go on vacation? When do you want to take your R&R? And somehow, for the life of me, I don't know how I did it, I managed to be home for my daughter's birthday every deployment. Her whole life, I only missed one birthday. And she understood that one. So he goes, when do you want to go? I go, I want to go July 1st. I want to be at home on July 1st. That way I had a couple days to go shopping, a couple days to unwind, and then enjoy my anniversary and my daughter's birthday.
Now, these different deployments to Iraq, could you see a change in the Iraqi people, the different deployments?
The first one, yeah, within all of them you can see a change. During the invasion, you didn't see too many people. Once they started, after they say the war's over part, you see people coming back in, and a lot of them were grateful to see us. I think it was the Shia, one of the whoever the oppressed group at that time was, liked that we were there. During the first deployment, we had a pizza place that we used to go to. We wouldn't tell them when we're coming in. We wouldn't tell them anything like that. We'd just show up and order a couple pizzas and take off out into a neighborhood. We'd get out there in that neighborhood and, eat our pizzas, and some of the little kids would come out, got the U.S. Army sitting there in the front yard. They would come out, and we'd actually played soccer with them. They enjoyed it, and we had fun doing it. Like I say, the second one, the insurgency had kicked in more and stronger, so you didn't have as much time out there like that. There was people who liked you, people who didn't. Diyala province, most of them didn't like us because we took their livelihood and their happiness away. Under the Saddam regime, they were good. At that time, we'd get mortared every so often, rocket here or there. But for the most part, we didn't get hit with anything like that. It was more IEDs in the area.
What quarters did you have in Iraq?
During that tour, I slept in a 2-man room that was an all-brick building. Our sergeant major took care of us. When we told him we wanted that room, the reason was there was communications equipment in that room that if anyone else got into and started messing with, would break it and it'd mess things up. He understood that. He agreed with it. Me and my peer, at my level, shared a 2-man room. Had AC, had a heater. Heck, we had a door on it. We were happy. Heck, we even had a refrigerator. So I say we were happy, because we'd all deployed a couple times before. We were living life. A lot of times we had fun. By then I'd learned if you talk to the locals, you can get stuff that you want. We all got bootleg satellite TV receivers and dishes, so we had TV from all over the world. Biggest thing you miss when you leave the States, you miss the news because you like to know what's going on. So we would catch that during the invasion. I had a shortwave radio, and we'd throw the antenna out and sit back in the truck and listen to Voice of America just to find out what was going on.
What do you think about the invasion of Iraq?
I wasn't real clear on why. I know that the terrorist organizations weren't there. It was all Afghanistan. That's where the Taliban's strongholds were. So it was kind of a foggy thing. You didn't know exactly why you were there. As I left, when the people started coming back, you started seeing smiles on faces, people waving. We had a couple guys get flowers. So it was kind of weird, trying to figure out, okay, why am I here? Other than, okay, we've taken the oppressed and freed them, for the most part. Driving through that same neighborhood when we came, because I literally drove through the same neighborhood I stayed in for the invasion, 6 months later, it was a whole different look in that town, that part of town.
How had it changed?
Well, where you had flat rooftops the whole time, you saw more TV antennas, more satellite antennas. Cell phone systems came in and set up. You could see, things getting a little bit better. You saw more, like air conditioning units and stuff like that up on the rooftops. So it was kind of a almost 180-degree difference in the scenery. The towns were still getting beat up, but that's typical.
So after your Iraqi deployments, where'd you go?
I went back to Germany. Hold on. Oh, when I came back from that deployment, I went to Fort Riley, Kansas. I'd re-enlisted because I'd been there for my 4 years. That was that determination of I'm going to stay in the military. I went to Fort Riley, Kansas, and got ready for another deployment.
Where'd you go this time?
I went back to Iraq. It was a vicious cycle.
Yep.
Come home, hang out. But that one, there was about a year in between. Big Army realized that, hey, some of these guys are doing back-to-back-to-backs, and they started putting time limits on people. When they did that, I was put into a signal unit that was just standing up. So with just standing up, they wanted about a year to train, get everyone in sync together and work together. That, and they had new equipment. I was placed on a retrans team. I didn't have to deal with computers no more. And with that, I relaxed. In that area, we deployed, it was about a year after I got there, and we went to Baghdad, a base south of Baghdad.
We with first ID?
First ID again.
That's
Why?
Fort- that's Fort
Because
Riley.
Germany closed out. First ID closed in Germany and came back to the States to Fort Riley. And I followed right along.
So how was Baghdad?
The area we were in, the insurgency had been going for, about 5 years by then? And that area of town was it was beat up. There was IEDs all over the place all the time. We were on the main route coming into town. And, the whole area it looked like a war zone still. We'd go through, like I said, I ran a retrans team then. So I would go out with my guys. We were stationed, our retrans site was a Iraqi police headquarters with American military liaisons there. So ideally, we set up there, set up on the roof, and as long as it stayed up, all we did was help out with the liaisons. We helped them take care of their normal operation sets. Some of my guys learned to listen to 4 radios at once and know which one to answer.
What was your job in the unit? What were you doing?
I was a retrans team chief.
Retrans chief.
Yeah. Doing it, it's one of those things where, you learn your job, you do it well.
How do you retransmit a message?
We were retransmitting radio broadcasts.
Broadcast, okay.
Comes in one radio as a receive, transmits out another radio as a transmit.
Now these,
Same Singars radios,
okay, there's all military.
all military
Okay.
equipment.
Okay,
We did have one civilian, like a Motorola walkie-talkie
okay.
station there, but it was self-sustained. It did its own thing.
There's all military messages.
All military equipment,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
And it's ideally all secret because that's how we encrypt everything. Like I said, that unit had just stood up the year before, so it was their first deployment, their first of anything. And there, it was a big learning curve for everyone there. And with that, I managed to make it home again for my daughter's birthday. But we enjoyed it. You
How
know,
many deployments did you have in Iraq?
4 total.
4.
And I deployed twice with First ID. That same unit, we deployed twice.
Okay.
The last one was to Tikrit.
What was it like in Tikrit?
Tikrit was a small town, and they actually had us on a air base there.
Wasn't that Saddam's hometown?
That was his hometown, where his beautiful little castle sat over off the river, and we stayed away from there because we wanted nothing to do with that. Like I said, I was in a signal unit. When we got there, within about 2 months, I'd gotten promoted. I made my staff sergeant E6, and our commander thought it'd be a good idea for me to go out and hang out with not a liaison team, but they were called MIT teams. And ideally, they were liaisons. They were trying to help the Iraqi military at the division level. I was working with a full bird colonel, a couple of lieutenant colonels, a handful of majors, and a couple of captains. And then they had their security force. And then there was my retrans team that was on site there. And with working with them, you know, like I said, there's probably about 40 of us there. But we were on the Iraqi military base. But we were perimetered off. We had our guards. And I was able to actually work with the Iraqis, you know, their communications guys. The liaison that they had to help, you know, that was working with them, when they started they actually got us a version of the SINGARS radio. And he would go out, you know, he'd have me come out with him and help him learn how to use it. Or we, you know, and I taught him everything that I knew about that radio. It was a little bit harder for me because the radio was in Arabic. But muscle memory plays, and you know which buttons do what, and you hit those right buttons, and it does what it wants it to do.
How long you in the military, in the Army?
I retired at 20 years, 1 month, 4 days.
After Iraq, you have any more deployments?
I had no more deployments after Iraq. I went to a training unit with First AD. I don't know what the heck was that acronym. Ideally, it was testing all the new equipment that they were trying to push to the guys downrange in Iraq, in Afghanistan. We were the last step to say, yes, this is going to do what they want it to, or no, don't send it to them.
Where were you based?
Beautiful El Paso, Texas.
Fort Bliss.
Fort Bliss.
I took basic there.
Ah, yes. It's a beautiful area.
Yeah. What did you do since you retired from the Army?
I started out with a part-time job over at Lowe's, and they actually had a position that came open that I kind of liked, and I jumped into it. So now I work full-time.
Now, when did you come to Bartlesville?
When I retired, 2014, January. I retired and moved to Bartlesville.
Why'd you come here?
I had family here. My cousin goes, hey man, I got you a job. I got you everything. You just got to come in and do this interview. And that fell through. So, okay, I'm already getting 2 checks. I'm going to relax for a minute. I took about 3 months off and then realized that I was spending more money than I was bringing in because I had to find something to do.
Yeah.
So with that, I went and got me a part-time job at Lowe's. And from there, where I'm still at, I'm just full-time now.
Would you join the Army again?
I would do it in a second.
I'd like to do a word association. I'll give you some words and you give me your reaction. The first one is basic training.
Nah.
Communications.
I used to enjoy it.
The guy in What's his name? Milosevic? What's his name?
Milosevic?
Yes.
Oh, I think he's a dirtbag. Glad he's gone.
Bosnia.
I had some fun there.
Kosovo.
It was a long 6 months.
Iraq.
The first one, I enjoyed waking up in a different spot every time.
Saddam Hussein.
A moron.
George H.W. Bush.
Good president.
Bill Clinton.
He had his good points and he had his bad points.
George W. Bush.
He's going to be missed.
How do you want to be remembered?
I just want to be remembered as being a good dad.
Anything else you want to talk about?
I'm actually fairly good.
Well, sir, this is an excellent interview. I want to thank you for your service and thank you for the interview.
Thank you.
And again, this is September 27th, 2019. My name is Joe Todd. This has been an interview with Robert Hussey in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. Thank you.
Thank you.